Go ahead, counsel.
Thank you, Your Honor. Miss Palanker, I'd like to ask you a couple of questions about your interview with the Santa Barbara sheriffs on January 7, 2005. Okay. You've told the sheriffs that you met the Arvizo family probably around 98 or 99, right?
Right.
Do you know which year it was, do you think?
It was 1999. I've since had a chance to look at a calendar.
Okay, and obviously you met them at the Laugh Factory.
Yes.
Right. Okay. Now, you told the sheriffs the following, when you were discussing giving the Arvizos $10,000, okay. You said, I gave him a check, him, being David, a check for $10,000, and he accepted that. But the thing was, that a few weeks later, he was asking for more money, so that's when I started going, and you said, that was the thing where I went out of balance with this family. Sound right?
I felt the family was out of balance.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then you mentioned Janet, and you talked about what was happening, and you said, I believe the kid, and the kids collaborated in what she was saying. I just wanted to be out of it. Clearly when you talked to the sheriffs, you were including Janet in your problems with the Arvizo family, weren't you?
Objection. Argumentative.
Overruled. You may answer.
I don't recall. They were all a family. There were 5 of them.
You told the sheriffs, this family can be as wacky as they want to be, right?
I don't recall saying that or what I would have meant by that, because you're saying it to me out of context.
Would it refresh your recollection if I just showed you the transcript of your interview?
Yes.
May I approach, Your Honor?
Yes.
There's several things in here that say, inaudible, so I'm having a difficult time remembering what the intent of this passage was because I was talking casually, so I don't recall.
Okay, let me just have that. Have you had a chance to review those pages of transcript?
Yes.
And do they refresh your recollection about your interview with the Santa Barbara sheriffs?
Not really.
Do you recall making statements to the Santa Barbara sheriffs on or around July 7, 2005?
Yes.
And were you at a meeting with the sheriffs?
Yes. They came to where I was working, yes.
Okay, and you don't recall saying, this family can be as wacky as they want to be?
It was probably.
Your Honor, I'm going to object and move to strike. I believe counsel misspoke when he said, July 7, 2005.
Can't hear you, sir.
Pardon me, January 7th. I did misspeak. My mistake. Let me restate the question. You do recall being interviewed by the sheriffs on January 7, 2005, right?
Yes.
And do you recall making general statements to the sheriffs about the Arvizo family?
Yes.
Do you recall telling them that you went out of balance with this family?
No.
You don't recall making those statements at all?
That was not the intent of what I had said.
Okay, did you say that?
I said I felt that something had gone out of balance, something was out of balance within that family.
Okay, and do you recall, referring to Janet, saying that you believed the kids were collaborating in what she was saying?
No, I don't.
Okay.
There's several things in there that are marked inaudible, and so I know I never said anything to that extent.
Okay. Do you recall saying, this family can be as wacky as they want to be?
I'm a comedian, and I'm sure I was talking casually about something involving the family being out of balance.
Okay. Do you recall telling the Santa Barbara sheriffs that Janet wanted to move, take her kids and move into your home?
No, I never told them that.
You never told them anything like that?
No.
Okay. Have you ever told that to any sheriff at any time?
No. She wanted me to pick them up at one point so she could talk with me about what was happening in her situation.
Did you know you were being tape recorded in this discussion?
No, I don't think I did.
Do you remember telling them that, I know that Janet's unbalanced. I think she's totally bipolar.
Objection. Improper opinion.
Do I answer?
Overruled. To the witness. I'm thinking. Laughter. You may answer.
I'm not a psychiatrist, but she's very excitable.
But do you remember telling the sheriffs the following? I know that Janet's unbalanced. I think she's totally bipolar. Something. The behavior from the children from the family was so over the top all the time. Do you remember saying that?
Yes, I do.
Okay. Do you remember telling the Santa Barbara sheriffs when you were talking about letters you received from the Arvizos, you don't just get one letter from them? You get 5 letters from them. You don't get one phone call. You get 5 phone calls. A message from Janet on your answering machine can last 5 minutes. She mimics types of messages on the phone. You mimicked for the sheriffs her messages on the machine. Do you remember that?
Yes, I do.
Is that something you said?
Yes. I was exaggerating. I didn't know I was being taped.
Do you remember telling the Santa Barbara sheriffs, when you didn't realize that you were being recorded, Janet would sell them at the benefits, then sell them at the hospital, and David was never at the Laugh Factory when the children were coming?
Sell them. I don't remember saying that, no.
Okay. Would it refresh your recollection if I show you a transcript of your recorded statement?
Okay.
May I approach, Your Honor?
Yes.
Thank you.
It says, inaudible, and I don't know what I was referring to.
Okay. Have you had a chance to review that page?
Yes, I have.
Do you recall telling the sheriffs?
Counsel, may I see that?
Sure. Let me withdraw that question. Let me start again. You've had some meetings with the prosecutors before you came in to testify, true?
Over the phone.
And you talked to some Santa Barbara sheriffs over the phone as well, correct?
I talked to the sheriffs in person.
At any time, did any of them tell you that your conversation with the sheriffs had been recorded?
I don't believe so.
Okay. Is today the first time you ever realized that they had recorded you without your knowledge?
No, I found out a couple days ago.
Who told you?
Ron.
Prosecutor Zonin.
Yes.
Okay. Do you recall telling the officer, Janet would sell them at the benefits, then sell them at the hospital, and David was never at the Laugh Factory when the children were coming?
Your Honor, I'm going to object and ask counsel to notify the witness when there are inaudible portions of the statement that he is reading.
I don't think he's required to do that. But the question is, all right. You may answer the question, but I know you won't remember it, so I'll have it reread.
I believe that the first portion of that statement is mistyped.
Okay.
The second portion of that statement is correct.
Okay. So you don't think you told the sheriffs, Janet would sell them at the benefits, then sell them at the hospital?
No, I don't.
Okay. Do you remember telling them that Janet was never at the hospital?
Yes, I do. I think it may have been seldom, now that I'm thinking of how they would have mistyped it.
Do you remember being asked if Janet had ever approached you for money in that phone conversation? Excuse me, in that interview?
Say it again. I was just thinking about my last thought. I'm sorry.
Okay. In that interview on January 7, 2005, with the Santa Barbara sheriffs, do you remember being asked if Janet had ever personally approached you or asked you for money?
I told them she hadn't.
No. You have to answer my question, please.
Okay.
Do you remember being asked that question?
Yes, I do.
Do you remember responding, it was always David or it was the children being coached to ask me for a laptop?
I felt that Gavin had been coached to ask me for a laptop.
Did Gavin ask you for the laptop?
He would go like this, indicating, because I had promised him one, so he was reminding me.
So you were asked by the officer, what do you mean by coached? Do you remember that?
Yes.
And you said, being coached to tell me that they hadn't gotten any Christmas presents, inaudible.
Star had told me that, yes.
Did you believe Star when he told you they hadn't gotten any Christmas presents?
I didn't, really. I wasn't sure. A lot of people were giving them gifts at that time.
Did you think Star was being coached?
I did.
Okay. And how do you know a lot of people were giving them gifts around the same time that Star said, we don't have any Christmas presents?
I don't know. I just know that people visited them, comedians visited them, and it was Christmas time, so I felt that they probably would have gotten something.
Okay. And in discussing Gavin asking for a laptop, you told the sheriffs, but he's right next to David asking for things. The father should say, honey, don't ask for anything. She's being very generous. Do you remember saying that?
Yes, I do.
What did you mean by that?
I had just given David a second check for $10,000 within a 3-week period of time, and I felt that David should have told Gavin, "We'll get you the laptop, honey. It's taken care of."
And this is when you thought Gavin was being coached to ask you for the laptop.
Because David was right there and he didn't stop him.
But you don't know if his mother coached him at all, do you?
His mother wasn't there.
Objection. Speculation.
The objection is overruled. She did answer, though.
Okay. Do you recall saying, and David was never at the Laugh Factory when the children were coming? Do you recall saying that?
During comedy camp. I recall saying that.
That was referring to comedy camp.
Yes.
Janet was always at the comedy camp, right?
Yes.
At the Laugh Factory.
Yes.
Okay. And when did you learn there was a problem with George Lopez?
David told me about it at the Laugh Factory.
And do you remember telling the Santa Barbara sheriffs with respect to George Lopez the following? I guess she had left a message on her machine screaming something that they were taking advantage of her child and that she didn't want to have anything more to do with them and David.
Yes, I.
Do you remember?
I remember saying that, yes.
And you were referring to Janet, correct?
I was referring to Ann Lopez.
Okay. Weren't referring to Janet at all.
No.
Okay. Do you remember saying to the sheriffs, Janet always put him up to it, and he had to do what she told him to do?
No.
Remember saying those words?
No, I don't.
Would it refresh your recollection if I show you the transcript?
Okay.
May I approach, Your Honor?
Yes.
All right.
Have you had a chance to look at that portion of transcript?
Yes, I have.
Does it refresh your recollection about what you said?
No. I think it's a very inaccurate depiction of what would have been said.
So you don't think you said, Janet always put him to it, and he had to do what she told him to do?
No, I don't.
Okay. Now, to your knowledge, did Jamie Masada have any involvement in the dispute with George Lopez?
To the extent where David told both Jamie and I had what had transpired.
And did Jamie try to solve that problem, if you know?
Yes, he did.
You knew the Arvizos had been at George Lopez's house, is that correct?
Yes.
How did you learn about that?
When they told me about the incident with the wallet. And he may have known that they had them over from time to time.
And at some point, you told the sheriffs you thought David had made Gavin call and say the money was in the wallet, right?
Yeah, I was trying to remember, but I don't remember.
Do you remember saying that?
I probably said that, yes.
Would it refresh your recollection if I just show you the transcript?
I think I know what I would have said. I would have said that I thought David had Gavin call, but I'm not sure who called.
Okay. Do you remember telling the sheriffs, these people are teaching their kids to lie?
No, I don't.
Would it refresh your recollection if I show you a portion of the transcript of your recorded statement?
Okay.
May I approach, Your Honor?
Yes.
Okay.
Have you had a chance to look at that portion of the transcript?
Yes, I have.
Does it refresh your recollection about what you told the sheriffs?
Yes, it does.
And what did you tell them?
That would have been George and Anne's suspicion.
So George and Ann Lopez suspected that the Arvizos were teaching their kids to lie.
That would have been my understanding of what was going on.
Okay.
Because they found a wallet and there was only $3 in it.
Right. Okay. Now, you indicated that David told you that Janet had spent the money that you had generously given them.
No.
What did you say about that?
Oh, that David told me that.
Yes.
Yes, he did.
And did he tell you what he had thought she had spent it on?
Votive candles.
Anything else?
I can't recall anything else he said.
Well, he didn't really just tell you she'd spent $20,000 on votive candles, did he?
He said, she's going crazy and she can't cope with this situation, and she's buying a lot of statues and votive candles. I don't remember. It was one big blurry sentence that didn't make a lot of sense to me, considering the amount of money.
And you did tell the sheriffs, in referring to what the Arvizos had done with your money, they bought him a giant, flat screen picture and picture TV and DVD player. You know, a kid at that point, 5 years ago, doesn't really need more than a VHS. Do you remember that?
Yes, I did say that.
And were you upset that your money had been spent that way?
I wouldn't use the word upset. I was concerned that they weren't going to be very good at budgeting their money.
So you weren't complaining that they should have spent it on a VHS?
No, it was just a thought in my head.
Well, your thought in your head was, why spend the money on a flat-screen picture TV and a DVD player, right?
That was my thought. I didn't articulate that to them.
You didn't articulate that to the Arvizos?
No, I didn't.
You didn't think it was your place to tell them how to spend it, right?
I really didn't, no.
You also told the sheriffs you think Jamie Masada is a pathological liar, right?
It was hyperbole. I had a falling out with him, and his English is difficult to understand and sometimes he doesn't recall events correctly.
But you told them, I think Jamie is a pathological liar, correct?
I'm going to object and move to strike. Mr. Masada's character is not in evidence, is not an issue here.
I think the prosecutor did bring out testimony about Mr. Masada throughout his examination.
The objection is overruled.
I said something along those lines, because he sometimes doesn't recall things. But I'm a comedian, so.
Well, but just not recalling things doesn't make you a pathological liar, right?
I'm not in a place to really make that diagnosis, so.
Well, you told them, I think Jamie's a pathological liar, right?
I may have said those words.
Would it refresh your recollection to look at the transcript?
No, I may have said those words.
I'm trying to find out if you did. Okay.
I probably did. But I was exaggerating.
Okay. You talked about Jamie Masada and David, and you said that Jamie told you David wanted to set up a committee to get more money, right?
Yes.
And you said, with respect to Jamie and David, one of them is telling the truth. The truth is somewhere in the middle, right?
Yes, I did.
And the officer said, who do you believe to be the truth? And your response was, I think Jamie is a pathological liar, right?
Well, it's difficult to say in that situation. I still don't know the truth, so it's difficult to say.
Well, let me ask you this, if you recall the conversation. I know you didn't know they were recording you. You could have responded, I think David is a pathological liar, but you didn't. You said, I think Jamie's a pathological liar, right?
Right.
And then the officer said, Jamie is. And you said, yes. Now, that's not just hyperbole, is it?
Sometimes he confuses incidents.
Do you remember after you said, I think Jamie is a pathological liar, the officer said, Jamie is. And you said, yes. Do you remember that?
Yes.
Okay, so you did say that, right?
Objection. Cumulative.
Asked and answered. Sustained.
What do you recall about the idea that a committee would be formed to raise more money?
Well, I had reason to believe that a few years prior to David asking me for more money, there had been some kind of committee at the Laugh Factory set up to help comedians that needed help. So the word committee was familiar to me in that there had been a committee at the Laugh Factory that was designed to give money to comedians in need. But I think the committee didn't sustain itself and had been long since dissolved. So, that's what made me think that Jamie might have said that to David, that there was a committee that could decide to give the family more money. But there wasn't a committee, to my knowledge. And Jamie insists that David made it up to try to get more money from me, so I really don't know where the truth is.
Okay, in this interview, do you remember telling the Santa Barbara sheriff that Janet needs to see a psychologist?
No.
Would it refresh your recollection if I show you the transcript?
Okay.
May I approach, Your Honor?
Yes.
Okay.
Have you had a chance to look at that transcript?
Yes, I have.
Does it refresh your recollection about what you told the Santa Barbara sheriff?
Yes, it does.
Did you tell them that Janet needs to see a psychologist.
I told them that I had told David during the periods of time when Janet was not appearing at the hospital, and I found that to be very peculiar, that if she couldn't be there for her son, that she might need to see a psychologist, because she was. It didn't seem like natural mother behavior.
Okay. Now, with respect to Janet, you told the Santa Barbara sheriff that anytime the Arvizos got someone's phone number, they would use it, right?
They liked making phone calls.
And who do you know that they used to call besides yourself?
They called Jamie, Chris Tucker, George Lopez, and they called Jay Leno.
And you. Excuse me. Something in my throat. You told the sheriffs, I have people call me at home and say, what do you want me to do with these people? They won't stop calling, correct?
That was concerning the Jay Leno incident.
Did Jay Leno tell you they won't stop calling him?
He told me they had left about 3 messages on his voicemail.
Okay. And you told the sheriffs you took David aside and said, stop calling all these people, right?
I said specifically, I've been asked by Jay for you to stop calling Jay.
Okay. Now, have you ever heard any recorded phone conversation between the Santa Barbara sheriffs and Jay Leno in this case?
No, I haven't.
Okay. Have you discussed what's on that recorded conversation with any prosecutor?
No, I haven't.
Did you tell the prosecutors in your meeting that Jay Leno had asked you to tell these people to stop trying to contact him?
Objection. Hearsay.
Overruled. You may answer.
Yes, I told them that.
Who did you tell that to?
The detectives that interviewed me.
Okay. Do you know approximately when you told them that?
It would have been Craig, when, a few months ago.
Would that be Craig Bonner?
Yes.
Okay. And where did that meeting take place?
At a recording studio.
Is that in Los Angeles?
Yes.
Okay. And who was at that meeting?
Me and Craig and another detective that he brought with him.
Okay. Now, when you told the sheriffs, people call me at home and say, what do you want me to do with these people? They won't stop calling. That sounds like it's more than just Jay Leno, doesn't it?
But I wouldn't have said that, because I was specifically talking about Jay.
Would it refresh your recollection if I just show you what is in the transcript?
Okay.
May I approach, Your Honor?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay.
Have you had a chance to look at that passage?
Yes, I have.
Does it refresh your recollection about what you told the Santa Barbara sheriffs?
Yes, it does.
And you said, people, call you. You didn't just limit it to Jay Leno, right?
No. I said, Jay called me at home. So that's a mistype.
That's a mistype.
Yeah.
Okay. Did you remember telling the Santa Barbara sheriffs, I don't know who's putting the kids up to all the phone calls?
Yes, I do.
And did you say that because you knew that the Arvizo children were calling celebrities by phone?
I did know they were calling. I didn't know it was Gavin's initiative. Gavin likes to pick up the phone and call people, or if they were being asked by their parents to do it.
Okay, so you told the sheriffs, they would go over to his house anytime they encountered a celebrity if they felt to be important. They would go over the top with cards and phone calls. And at first I thought, after I found out maybe they saw celebrities as a lifeline to get out of her situation. To get her out of her situation that she had gotten into at 16. Do you remember saying that?
Yes, I do.
You're referring to Janet Arvizo, correct?
Yes.
You were referring to the fact that Janet Arvizo got married at the age of 16, right?
Yes, I was.
And what you were telling the sheriffs was you thought Janet and the family were trying to latch on to a celebrity to get out of their situation, true?
Latch on to anyone who could help them.
Okay. You told the sheriffs, after Gavin got ill, you rarely saw Janet, right?
Right.
But you stayed in touch with her by phone, didn't you?
Yes, I did.
Now, the prosecutor asked you some questions about Janet talking to you on the phone and you detected she was scared, right?
Yes.
She wanted you to meet her in Van Nuys, correct?
In Sherman Oaks.
Okay, You told the sheriffs she wanted to meet you in Van Nuys, Ventura, at Vaughn's, correct?
Yeah. That would be Sherman Oaks.
Okay. And you told the sheriff that she wanted you to come and get them, right?
Yes.
And you were on your way out the door, right?
To do something else, yes.
And you said, I didn't really want something about the Arvizos. You were afraid of David, and I just didn't want them at my house. Do you remember that?
Right.
She wanted you to take them to your house.
Yes, she did. Yeah.
Do you recall either David or Janet wanting you to take Devellin and Gavin to a movie set?
No, I don't.
Well, at some point you told the sheriffs you thought David had made inappropriate remarks to you, right?
Oh, are you talking about when we went to see Adam Sandler?
I'll ask you about that for sure, but let me just stick to what I asked you first. You did tell the sheriffs that, in your opinion, David had made some inappropriate remarks to you, right?
Yes.
And you told the sheriffs that you were asked to take Devellin and Gavin to a movie set, right?
I was asked to accompany Gavin and David to a movie set because Jamie had another appointment after the meeting he had set up between Gavin and Adam Sandler. So I was asked to drive David there and drive David and Gavin back to the Laugh Factory.
And you were uncomfortable with Janet making comments to the effect, "You're David's sweetheart, right?"
She said something to that effect to me at one point.
And you didn't like that comment?
No. They were married.
Okay. And you told the sheriffs that David made inappropriate comments to you about Gavin starting to get erections, right?
Yes, he did.
And that made you uncomfortable, didn't it?
I didn't think that that area needed to be discussed. It would have been embarrassing to Gavin if he had known.
Okay. And you first met David at the hospital, right?
Yes.
Now, when did you say David started going to the Laugh Factory on a regular basis?
Around about that time. You know, we told him, if you need a break and you want to come hang out, Jamie told him. Jamie invited him.
Okay. Did you think that he and Jamie were close friends?
Not any closer than David and I didn't.
You did tell the sheriffs you thought you and Jamie were the ones who were most involved with this family.
Yes, we were.
Okay. And at some point you learned that Michael Jackson seemed to be very involved with this family, right?
They were going up to the ranch, yes.
And at some point, did it appear to you that you saw them less often because they were spending time with Michael Jackson?
Yes, because Gavin was getting better and they seemed to be spending more time with Michael.
Okay. When you and Fritz Coleman visited the address on Soto Street.
Yes.
That was around Christmas time, is that right?
Yes.
And what did you bring them?
A microwave, a PlayStation, and some games.
Now, how close in time was that visit to your writing your first $10,000 check? Do you know?
I wrote the check in June when he got ill, so.
Okay.
However many months that is. 7.
So you began giving them gifts in December, right?
Yes.
And the first $10,000 is written in June.
Yes.
And the next one's written in July.
Yes.
Okay. In this interview with the police, which you didn't know was being recorded, do you remember telling them, I didn't know what was going on with the family? They were always kind of strange.
I might have said words to that effect.
Do you know if you did?
Yes, but by strange, I didn't mean them as individuals. I meant the family as an entity.
You didn't mean them as individuals. You just meant when they all get together, they're strange. Is that the idea?
I couldn't really put my finger on what was out of balance within this family structure. Certainly not the children. Never the children.
Okay, but clearly you were. You were suspicious these children are being coached to lie, correct?
I was.
Okay, when did you begin to be suspicious that this family was being, that these children were being coached to lie?
Not to, oh, did you say, to lie? I didn't hear the word, to lie. I thought you said, coached along.
Coached to lie.
To lie. I wouldn't make that statement.
You certainly told the sheriff's words to that effect.
Well, that they would stretch the truth as it, when it came to presents or what they had received, that they would say, we got love. What did you get for Christmas? We got love. That sounds coached to me.
But you thought the children were also being coached by the parents to, in effect, plead poverty.
No, just that they hadn't received a Christmas gift.
Hadn't received Christmas presents when you knew they had.
Yeah, yes.
Okay.
Gavin told me, when I got to the hospital, that Michael had given him a PlayStation 2. A PlayStation 2.
What else did you learn Michael Jackson had given Gavin at the hospital?
That was the day that Star, on the phone, had said they just got love. And when I got to the hospital, Gavin told me the truth.
And when was this?
Christmas of 2000.
Okay. Now, you knew that Janet Arvizo wanted her kids to be in show business, right?
I believe she did, yes.
And how did you learn that?
She had told me that she had taken them to tap as young children, to tap dancing, and had become involved in a dance academy, and that she felt that all of the children wanted to perform, that she wanted that for them.
When you first visited the Soto Street address during Christmas time?
Yes.
Did you know where Janet's parents lived?
No. I wouldn't have known at that point, no.
Had she told you there was an address in El Monte that we use also?
No.
Was it your belief that the family lived exclusively at the Soto Street address?
Yes. It was at that time, yes.
And that's what they represented to you, right?
Yes, they did.
Okay. I don't know if I got the answer. If I didn't hear it, I apologize, but I asked you what you learned Michael Jackson had given the Arvizos at the hospital.
Oh, he had sent a large basket of toys, and that he, in the year when nobody could find a PlayStation 2, he had found a PlayStation 2 for the kids.
You've indicated you and Fritz Coleman were giving gifts to this family at least half a year before you heard Gavin had cancer, correct?
Yes.
Now, somebody must have told you the family didn't have any money, right?
I came to believe that over the course of the previous summer where I had come to know them.
And how did you come to believe that this family was impoverished?
The children would display it in their material on stage, their comedy material. And they would take the bus, sometimes not have enough money to take the bus back home.
Now, you say the children would display this in their comedy material. Do you mean they would do comedy routines about how poor they were?
I don't remember any specific jokes, but a lot of children in that class did those types of jokes. So they very well may have. And I may have just assumed that they were from East LA, so they were less privileged than a lot of children. I may have done a lot of assuming in those regards.
Okay, now, how many children were in the class at that point?
At the beginning of the summer, it would have been 25 to 30. And the ones who actually graduate would have been about 12.
How many of those children did you visit that Christmas time with Fritz Coleman?
No others. They were the ones that we chose.
Is there a reason why you chose the Arvizos to visit and not any of the other families?
Fritz told me that he wanted to bring his children to bring gifts to other children that didn't have the privileges that they enjoyed, and I immediately thought of the Arvizos. And probably one of the reasons would have been that there were 3 kids.
Okay.
A lot of kids that come to comedy camp, it's just an individual kid. So the Arvizos stuck in my memory because they were a family.
Do you remember ever receiving a call from Janet informing you that somebody had repossessed her car?
No. She told me she didn't have a car, because I would ask if she could meet me, if she and the kids could meet me, and she would say she didn't have a car.
Do you recall her ever telling you that somebody had repossessed a car that Michael Jackson had given her?
No. I knew that Michael had given them a car, and then I knew that then they didn't have a car, but it was very unspecific as to why.
And didn't Janet tell you at some point that David had damaged the car that Michael Jackson had given the family?
She led me to believe that he had, but she was talking very vaguely, that David had crashed a car. And I don't know if she meant the car that Michael had given them, but that he had caused a scene and went on a rampage and crashed a car.
But she didn't give you any details about it, right?
Not in terms of it having been Michael's car, no.
I think it goes without saying that, for the most part, you believe Janet rather than David when it came to their marriage difficulties, right?
I have come to that conclusion, yes.
Yeah, you believe Janet more than David, right?
Yes, I do.
Okay, you weren't a witness to anything going on in the home, were you?
No, I wasn't.
Okay, and when did you last talk to David?
After, if you have it on record, when he lost custody of the children, right around that time period.
Okay, and did you used to discuss their marital problems with Janet?
He would make comments, but this was. He only called me after he lost the custody battle, because he wanted to tell me that everything she said was not true and everything he said was true, and I didn't want to be involved in that type of conversation.
Do you remember telling our investigator that, with regard to Janet's claims of David's abuse, a lot of things said by Janet didn't seem to match up?
I don't think I meant it in terms of the abuse.
Okay, but you certainly told our investigator a lot of things Janet told you just didn't seem to match up, correct?
There are some inconsistencies in things that she has said.
Okay, and you visited Gavin at the hospital approximately 50 times, right?
That might be kind of high. It might be somewhere between 20 and 50, depending on whatever an average of 2 times a week would be over the course of a year.
And you maybe saw Janet there twice, is that correct?
2 or 3 times, yeah.
Okay, now, it was you were told that Janet was working, right?
Yes.
But you never confirmed that, right?
No.
Okay, did you used to visit Gavin at different times of day?
Yes, I did.
Like what times would you visit Gavin typically?
Sometimes at 2 o'clock. Sometimes after dinner. Sometimes at 4 o'clock. Whenever I could make it over there.
And you'd see David there quite often, correct?
Yes, I would.
And did you believe that your very generous donations allowed David to go to the hospital?
I wasn't sure, because he asked for the second check so quickly. I wasn't really sure where he had money from.
Do you remember telling our investigator you thought Janet had a hostage syndrome?
Yes, I did.
And you thought that began when she was married at the age of 16?
To an abusive man, yes.
Right. Did you ever have a discussion with David about this alleged abuse?
No, I never knew anything about the abuse until after Janet finally told me, when she was going to court about it.
Now, are you aware that at some point during the divorce, Janet, for the first time, claimed that David had molested Devellin?
No.
Objection. 403, 352.
The objection is overruled. The answer was, no. Next question.
Now, did you believe any of the money you donated was to go to medical expenses?
No, I did not.
Okay, you thought it was for general living expenses.
Yes.
Because they were impoverished, right?
Yes.
Okay, and did you know the contractor that went to their home to do the work on the room?
Yes. He was my contractor.
Did you actually refer him to them?
Yes, I did.
Okay. Would it be accurate to describe what you saw Michael Jackson had provided Gavin at the hospital was a large display of gifts? Does that sound accurate?
It was in keeping with what I had done. I wouldn't consider it overly large.
Did you see a lot of gifts from other celebrities at the hospital for Gavin?
It's possible that I did, but they were celebrities that I knew. And Michael is a huge star, so that would have stood out in my memory.
Okay, and you remember very clearly seeing what he had sent, right?
Yes.
And did you discuss with Gavin that Michael Jackson had sent him a large gift display?
I saw the big gift basket, and I said, "Wow, who sent you that?" And he said, "Michael."
Okay.
And I was impressed.
Did you discuss with Fritz Coleman the fact that other celebrities were providing benefits to the Arvizos at this particular point in time?
No. We didn't know of any specific benefits.
Okay. Did you talk to George Lopez, for example, about what he was doing, if anything?
No, I didn't.
Did you ever discuss with Michael Jackson what he was doing for them?
No, I didn't.
Ever talk to Chris Tucker about what he was doing for the family?
No, I didn't.
You mentioned Adam Sandler. Was it your understanding that Adam Sandler provided any benefits to the family?
I have no knowledge of that.
Did Gavin ask you to introduce him to other celebrities, like Jim Carrey?
Gavin never asked me those questions. He would ask Jamie those questions.
How do you know that?
That's what Jamie told me, that he would ask Gavin, who do you want to meet? And Gavin would tell Jamie.
Okay. Was it your understanding that Jamie would try to arrange those meetings?
Yeah, he did. I know he did.
Who did you see Jamie arrange meetings with for Gavin?
With Adam Sandler. And then he called Quincy concerning Michael.
Called Quincy Jones.
Yes.
Do you know if Quincy Jones ever got involved with the Arvizo family?
No, I think it was Quincy's office that called Neverland.
Okay.
Or gave Jamie the number to call Neverland. I'm not sure exactly how it transpired.
Alright. Now, you indicated you thought David had obtained monies that were raised at a fundraiser, right?
Yes.
How did you know he got that money?
I saw it handed to him.
Okay. Did Jamie hand it to him?
Yes.
And did you ever find out what happened with that money?
After he threw it at Jamie.
Yes.
He picked it back up and put it in his pocket.
And did he walk off with it?
Yes.
You don't know what he ever spent that on, right?
No, I don't.
You don't know if he gave it to Janet or kept it himself, right?
No, I don't.
That was the first fundraiser.
That was the second one.
Who took the money at the first fundraiser, to your knowledge?
David, but I didn't see it.
Did somebody tell you he took the money?
It was just assumed that the benefit was for him.
Okay. And you don't know what that money was spent on either, right?
No, I don't.
You don't know if he gave it to Janet or spent it himself, right?
No, I don't.
Now, after you had your phone call with Janet where you thought she was scared, you said you called your lawyer, correct?
Correct.
You didn't call the police, did you?
No, I didn't.
You never called the police about anything Janet told you, correct?
Right. Correct.
Have you talked to anyone about, excuse me, before you took the witness stand yesterday, did you discuss with anyone what you were going to say in court?
I just had pre-interviews with Gordon.
How many pre-interviews did you have with Gordon?
1.
And when was that?
Friday, Saturday, maybe. Saturday.
And did Gordon tell you what he was going to ask you?
He just went over the events with me.
Okay. Did he discuss what you were going to say?
No.
Did you go over any of your sheriff's interviews with him?
No, I didn't.
Alright. Are you aware of the Arvizos ever meeting Kobe Bryant?
I've only read it in the media recently. Gavin may have told me at that time, but I just don't recall it.
And do you know, are you aware of the Arvizos ever meeting Mike Tyson?
No, I wasn't familiar with that at all.
Okay. Do you know anything about Gavin's behavior at his school before the year 2003?
Yes. One of the teachers came to the hospital to visit him, and she joked about it.
Do you know, for example, whether or not Gavin was repeated disciplined by virtually every teacher at school?
I think he was chatty. You know, we joked about that he talked a lot. And.
Did you ever look at his school records?
No, I didn't.
Do you know anything about him fighting in school?
No, I don't.
Do you know anything about him getting up in the middle of class and starting to sing?
Objection. Relevancy.
I think it's been opened, Your Honor.
Has no bearing on credibility.
The objection is overruled.
I don't know anything about that, no.
Do you know how many teachers disciplined Gavin at his school, if any?
No, I don't, other than it had been discussed in a joking manner by a teacher that came to visit him at the hospital.
Do you know whether Gavin was often sent to detention at his school?
No, I don't.
Do you know whether he called teachers names?
No, I don't.
Okay. No further questions, Your Honor.
Redirect.
Thank you, Your Honor. Ms. Palanker, as far as the contractor, your contractor that worked with the Arvizos.
Right.
I just want to make sure I understand what his arrangement was with the Arvizo family. Do you know if he originally intended to be paid for his work?
He intended to be paid for the cost of the materials.
Okay. So he originally intended to work for free, and just be paid for the cost of the materials.
Yes.
You've made several statements about Janet's emotional state, her mental state. There's some words like bipolar, wacky, over the top.
Right.
Can you explain that?
She's very emotional.
What do you mean by that?
She's very emotional, very excitable, very gregarious. And I didn't know how to interpret her non-presence at the hospital. I may know more about that now, but it's all just speculation. But that was unusual behavior for a mother.
Okay. You feel like you understand more about that now.
I do, yes.
And why is that?
I've been told that David was beating her up, and threatening her if she would come down there, that he was going to kill her.
You also talked about the children making phone calls to celebrities.
Yes.
I believe so far we've talked about Chris Tucker. He was one, correct?
They were friends with Chris.
So as far as you know, did Chris Tucker enjoy talking on the phone to the children?
I know that he did.
What about Jamie?
Jamie loves the children.
What about George Lopez, when things were still okay between the family?
He loves the children. He had a problem with David.
Did you ever see Janet selling tickets at the hospital to the benefit?
No, I didn't.
And there was a great deal of testimony dealing with the subject of coaching the Arvizo children.
Right.
Did you have an impression as to who would be the coach in that situation?
No, I really didn't.
Okay.
I couldn't tell.
Would it ever be Janet?
I wouldn't have been able to make that assessment.
Now, specifically you've mentioned 2 occasions, I think, that you thought the children were coached. One involving a computer.
Yes.
And another involving when Star was coached. You felt he was coached about saying he just got love for Christmas.
Yes. And as soon as David went down to the car, Gavin told me the truth.
Okay. Let's talk about that. Tell me the circumstances of that second incident.
I called to make sure they were there, because I wanted to bring them my presents for Christmas. And I said, "What else did you get for Christmas, Star?" And he said, "Just love."
Now, were you in the room at the time?
No, I was on the phone.
Okay.
To make sure they were there before I came down.
And this was at the hospital?
Yes.
And Gavin's hospital room?
Yes.
And so you're talking to Star, and you ask him this question, and he says what?
Just love.
And that sounded what to you?
It sounded coached.
Okay. But did you know it was coached?
No, I didn't know it.
It just sounded funny to you.
It didn't sound like something a child would say, unless they say that in their family, unless it's like a family thing, that's what they say.
Okay. So then you go back down to the hospital.
Yes.
How much time between the phone call and the trip to the hospital?
Half hour.
And who do you find when you're at the hospital? Who's there?
All 3 of the children and David.
Okay. Anything else said about what the kids got for Christmas?
When David took my gift down to the car, Gavin told me that Michael had given them a PlayStation 2.
And what impression, if any, did that leave upon you?
I went, "Oh, well, I was happy for them. And I felt that, with David gone, they would tell me the truth."
Did you notice any difference in the behavior between the children when they were around David and their mother?
They were much more affectionate with their mother.
Are those the only 2 incidents where you felt you had an impression that the children were coached?
Those were the only 2, yeah.
Okay. But, in fact, did you ever see any coaching going on?
Never.
Have you ever seen Janet Arvizo under any circumstances where you believe she was teaching her children to lie?
No, never.
Have you ever had that impression?
No.
There was a statement that I believe you said there were some unintelligible remarks about it. But I want to find out what your true feelings are.
Okay.
Something about Janet making David do things.
I never said anything to that effect. I wouldn't have witnessed any of that behavior, ever.
Is that your impression, that Janet made David do things?
No.
What is your impression of the powers between Janet and David?
That she was very intimidated by him. And that after he was gone, she could tell me the truth, and so could the children.
How much time? How long have you known the Arvizo children since David left? I guess the better question would be, how long has it been since David left that family?
Gosh, it would have been, what, like 2001 or 2002. So 3 years since then.
Is the family different?
Oh, yeah.
Since that time?
There's a weight lifted from them. They're almost joyous. When I'm in their presence, they're laughing and joking, easy to be around.
You mentioned that there was a remark that you made about Jamie Masada being a pathological liar.
Yes.
Do you think Jamie Masada is a pathological liar?
No, I don't.
That was an exaggeration.
Exaggeration, yeah.
And there was a discussion about the issue of there being a Laugh Factory committee.
Right.
What specifically did David tell you about this committee? I'm not sure I understand that.
He had me on the phone and he started going into it again, about the money. And then he said, Jamie told me that you are on a committee, you, meaning me, are on a committee and that you can bring up at the next meeting that the committee would vote to give us money. And I said, I don't know what you're talking about. There is no committee. I'm not on a committee. The only thing I knew about a committee was that my boyfriend at the time, maybe 3 years prior, had been on a committee where they voted to pay for a comedian's dental work, and that's the only thing I think the committee did before it was dissolved.
Have you had a chance to talk to Jamie Masada about this case?
I've talked to him. He wanted to.
Objection. Hearsay.
That's a yes or no question.
Yes, I have.
All right. And do you have an impression of Jamie Masada's conduct towards the Arvizo family?
He.
Objection. Non-responsive.
I mean, that's a yes or no, first of all.
Could you ask it again, please?
The question is, do you have an impression of Mr. Masada's, how he behaved and treated the Arvizo family?
Yes. I have a strong impression, yes.
And what is that?
He cares very deeply for them, and he wants to do the right thing.
You also said something about celebrities or famous people being a lifeline to this family.
Yes, I did.
What did you mean by that?
It felt to me like Janet was reaching out to people who were more stable so that they could pull her out of her circumstances and help her stabilize herself. Like she was almost desperate for stabilization or to rescue her children from this situation. The more people that she let know, the more likely she would be able to get help for herself and her kids.
Do you perceive her to be vulnerable?
Yes.
Why?
Objection. Relevance. Foundation.
Sustained.
I believe counsel has questioned her extensively about Miss Arvizo's character and psychological wherewithal.
The objection was sustained.
All right. Has Gavin Arvizo ever lied to you?
No.
Objection. Move to strike. Calls for speculation.
Counsel has questioned extensively about specific instances of Gavin Arvizo and issues of credibility.
You're limited in your character evidence to the evidence you've already put on.
You mentioned that Janet was interested in getting her children into entertainment.
Yes.
Did you perceive that as a good thing, or a bad thing, indifferent? Tell me.
I don't have a good opinion about pushing children into show business, but that wasn't the feeling I got. The children wanted to perform.
Did you know that she enrolled her children in other extracurricular activities other than just entertainment?
Oh, lots of them.
Like what?
They're in the Sea Cadet program. Devellin was in the Police Cadet Academy program. They're in, I don't remember the others, but I think they're well-rounded children.
Did Janet have something to do with getting her in these programs? Do you know?
Oh, yeah, yes. The boys play football.
Have you been around Miss Arvizo, Janet Arvizo, around other people?
Yes.
Other celebrities?
Yes.
Have you ever seen her ask for money from anybody?
No, never.
Ever seen her angling for money?
Never.
Objection. Vague.
Overruled. Excuse me for a moment. A moment ago you made a motion to strike, and I grant that now.
Okay, thank you.
Getting back to the phone call that counsel questioned you about. When Janet called you and she was upset, did she express any other fears that she had at that time?
Objection. Leading, and hearsay, and no foundation.
Counsel has asked her about part of the statement, and I'm asking to have the entire statement come in.
All right, then I think you need to identify the statement so he and I know what you're addressing.
How would you like me to do that, Your Honor? Should I read it, read the question?
You can say, he asked you this, and then read it, and then complete it, if that's what you're.
All right. Did Janet indicate that the Jackson people wanted to send her to Brazil, make her leave the country, and make her disappear?
Yes, she did.
Objection. Misstates the evidence. Leading. No foundation, beyond the scope.
Well, the question is stricken and the answer is stricken. The jury's admonished to disregard it. That's not what I told you to do. I told you to address the statement that you say you're going to complete first with her, so that I know what statement you're talking about.
All right.
You're saying that.
I'm sorry, I thought I made it clear.
You gave the complete statement, so I don't know that.
The statement that I'm referring to is the statement in which Janet called you when she appeared to be distressed. Do you know what I'm talking about? Which statement we're talking about?
The statement that Janet made or the statement that I made?
The conversation between you.
Yes.
Now, does this go back to the spontaneous declaration statement?
Well, it does, but since that time, there has been an inquiry made into other areas of the statement by counsel.
All right, maybe you better show me the statement so I can. Will you approach, with counsel, and let me see the statement? To the jury, you can talk. Discussion held off the record at sidebar. All right, you may proceed.
Thank you, Your Honor. You also made a remark that you thought Janet suffered from hostage syndrome.
That was my assessment, yes.
Okay. Do you have any training in psychology?
No, I don't.
Okay. Did you have something specific in mind? Do you know the clinical definition of hostage syndrome?
I don't know the clinical definition, but it just reminded me of when Elizabeth Smart was kidnapped and she would be in public places and she wouldn't tell anybody.
Okay.
Just reminded me of Janet.
And for those who don't know who Elizabeth Smart is, I'm not going to ask you, but I'm going to ask you why you think, or why you used that phrase to describe Janet.
Objection. Relevance. Foundation.
Sustained.
All right. Thank you, Ms. Palanker. I have no further questions.
Thank you.
Recross.
Yes, please, Your Honor. You made a comment that you thought Janet had suffered from hostage syndrome since she was 16, correct?
Yes.
And it was your understanding at the age of 16 she married David, right?
Right.
And you also talked to Janet about her upbringing, did you not?
No, I don't think I did.
Did she tell you that her father had beaten her and held her hostage, too?
No, she didn't.
Objection. No foundation. Irrelevant.
Sustained.
Now, the prosecutor. Excuse me, let me rephrase that. Did you have a lot of discussions with Janet about her upbringing?
Not really, no.
But you certainly had enough discussions to conclude that she has this thing about. She's had this thing about being held hostage since she was 16, right?
That's when she got married.
Right. Okay. All right. Did she ever describe her situation as like a hostage syndrome since the time she was 16?
She didn't use those words, but that's what she described.
Okay. So she told you, in effect, she'd been held hostage since she was 16, right?
Yes.
Objection. Misstates what the witness just said.
Sustained.
When you discussed Janet's life with her, it was your impression, was it not, that she felt she had been held hostage since she was 16?
Objection. Improper opinion. Calls for a conclusion.
Sustained.
Did Janet tell you she'd been held hostage since she was 16?
No.
Objection. Hearsay.
She said, no. The answer is in. The objections overruled.
Have you ever had any discussion with David about his side of this story?
Yes, I have.
And when did you last talk to David about his impression of what was happening in the family?
It was about 2002, right after he had lost custody of his children.
And David was complaining about not having custody of his children, was he not?
Yes, he was.
He was complaining that Janet had told the children what to say, wasn't he?
No.
Objection. Hearsay.
Sustained.
Where did you have a discussion with David?
On the phone.
Did he call you?
Yes, he did.
And was that the only discussion you had with him about the domestic situation?
Since the divorce, there were 2 phone calls. 2 phone calls.
Did David ever tell you his belief that Janet used to coach the children?
Objection. Hearsay.
Sustained.
Did you ever have any discussions with David about Janet coaching the children?
Objection. Hearsay.
Sustained.
How long was your conversation with David?
Very short. I didn't want to be in the middle of that domestic situation.
But in a sense, you ended up in the middle, sort of, didn't you?
Yes, I have.
You did because you've become a good friend of Janet, right?
I wouldn't classify it as good friend.
Certainly more friendly than with David.
Yes.
Because David offended you, didn't he?
To a certain degree, he did.
You thought his comments to you were very inappropriate.
Yes.
You thought he might be interested in you.
Sometimes, yes.
For a relationship, right?
Yes.
And you complained about that, true?
I didn't complain to him about it.
But you complained to others about it, did you not?
Maybe to a couple of. I think I told Jamie that I didn't want to be left alone with him again.
Right. And needless to say, David never was a close friend of yours, correct?
No. He wanted to be, I think.
And when did you last see him?
Probably the last benefit.
Now, you admitted telling the sheriffs in a conversation you did not know they were recording that Mesereau was a pathological liar, and then they asked you to confirm that, and you said, yes. You come here today, under oath, and you completely change your statement. Why?
I haven't completely changed it.
Well, didn't the prosecutor just get up and ask you if you thought Jamie Mesereau was a pathological liar?
I don't think I'm clinically trained to make that diagnosis. So if I made that comment, it was an exaggeration.
Do you think you need clinical training to look at someone, evaluate what they're saying, and conclude they're a pathological liar?
I don't even know the clinical definition of pathological liar.
How about a non-clinical definition? Just an ordinary common sense one.
Someone that's been caught misrepresenting past events.
And when you told the police he was a pathological liar, you were accusing him of doing just that, weren't you?
Of doing that, yes. But I don't think I'm qualified to call him a pathological liar.
Because you're not a psychiatrist or psychologist.
Right.
But in your experience, don't ordinary people often look at others and say, that person is a pathological liar?
Those would be opinions.
When you told the sheriffs he was a pathological liar, you were telling them the truth, correct?
Objection. Asked and answered.
Overruled. You may answer.
Right.
I was telling him an opinion.
An opinion that you believed was true, correct?
I was probably exaggerating.
Then why did you confirm it 2 sentences later that it was true?
Objection. Argumentative.
Sustained.
When Janet was going through her divorce with David, did you have much interaction with Janet?
Yes. We talked on the phone quite a bit.
Did you meet her in person, ever?
Not during that period.
Okay. Would she call you every day?
No.
Would she call you every other day?
Once a week, maybe.
Did you ask Janet to stop calling celebrities on a regular basis?
No.
Did you ever ask any of the Arvizos to stop calling Jay Leno?
David.
Okay. Did you ever ask Janet to stop calling?
No.
Have you ever talked to Jay about whether or not he ever spoke to Janet, Gavin and Janet on a phone call?
Jay said he had placed a phone.
Objection. I'm going to object as hearsay.
The question requires a yes or no.
Okay. Ask it again, please.
Yes. Have you ever spoke to Jay Leno about whether or not Jay Leno believes he was in a phone conversation with Gavin and Janet?
Yes, I spoke to him about it.
Okay. Have you ever spoke to Mr. Leno about what he told the Santa Barbara sheriffs about that?
No, I have not.
Have you ever spoke to Mr. Leno about whether or not he knows he was recorded in that conversation by the Santa Barbara sheriffs?
Objection. Relevancy.
Sustained.
Now, you told the sheriffs that David claimed that Janet was abusive, correct?
Objection.
Yes, he.
Hearsay.
Sustained.
Did you tell the Santa Barbara sheriffs yourself that David believed Janet was abusive?
Objection. Hearsay. Ask the court to admonish counsel not to go into this area.
The objection is sustained. Hearsay.
All right. How many greeting cards did you receive from the Arvizo children?
Maybe.
Objection. Beyond the scope.
Sustained.
Where did the name, Wheezy, come from?
That's short for Louise.
Okay. And did Janet come up with that one?
No. I've been called that most of my life.
Okay. Do you recall the Arvizo children ever referring to you in terms like, mother?
No, they never did.
Did they ever talk to you in terms of their being part of your family?
No, just like a guardian angel, words like that.
Okay. Did they do that on a regular basis?
No, only on a card.
Okay. Now, you were at both fundraisers at the Laugh Factory, right?
Yes.
And what time did they start, if you know?
Probably around 8 o'clock.
And I believe you told the jury that you didn't want to sit in the front and help collect money. Is that true?
Yeah, that's true, yes.
Okay. And was it your understanding that the Arvizo family sat in the front to collect money?
I believe I saw them. I saw them sitting behind a table.
Was that at both fundraisers?
I don't know who did at the first one. I just remember that at the second one.
And if you walked into the Laugh Factory, would you just see a table where they were sitting?
Yes. The way you would for any fundraiser.
And would the first people you saw as you walked in the Laugh Factory be the Arvizo family at those fundraisers?
Objection. Vague as to the Arvizo family.
Overruled.
You would see the doorman, and he would escort you to where you would pay for your tickets, which would be them.
So were you paying for your tickets by paying a member of the Arvizo family?
They had a money tray at the Laugh Factory that you.
And would they then give a ticket to get in?
Yes.
Would they stamp your hand or anything like that, if you know?
No, just a ticket.
Who trained the members of the Arvizo family how to accept money and give tickets to the fundraiser? Do you know?
Objection. Assumes they were trained.
I'll rephrase it, Your Honor. Do you know if anybody instructed the Arvizo family how to handle the fundraisers?
I don't know anything about that. I was upstairs while that took place.
Why did you not want to be there at the entrance helping with the tickets?
Because I had already given them. I had already given them money, and I didn't want to be in a position where I was the one taking the money. It was just personal. I just didn't want to do that task.
And to your knowledge, were the Arvizos the ones who actually added up the money or had possession of it?
No, Jamie did that.
Well, would they collect money and put it in a box, to your knowledge?
Yes, there was a box.
And do you know if they were supposed to add up how much there was?
It would surprise me if they would have.
Did you ever see them hand that money to Jamie Masada?
I saw Jamie with the money.
Okay, when was that?
When he came upstairs to give it to David.
Now, to your knowledge, were any tickets sold in advance of that fundraiser by anybody?
They might have been over the phone. You know, the Laugh Factory's a business, so they may have been.
Do you know if the Arvizos were given tickets to sell outside of the Laugh Factory?
I don't know that.
Have you been to other fundraisers at the Laugh Factory besides the two for the Arvizos?
Oh, yes, I've been to plenty.
And typically, are tickets given to people to sell outside of the Laugh Factory?
I'm not aware of that. I haven't organized a fundraiser, so I'm not aware if that's one of the ways to bring in guests. I'm not aware of that.
And to your knowledge, there were two fundraisers, right?
Yes.
And how far apart were they, if you know?
I want to say 6 months, approximately.
Okay. When's the last time you talked to George Lopez about the Arvizos?
Objection. Beyond the scope.
Overruled. Go ahead.
I never had a chance to talk to George about the Arvizos, even though he was involved. At that time, he was working mornings on a radio station, so he wasn't doing stand-up at that time, and he wasn't around for me to discuss. I would have liked to have discussed it with him, but he wasn't around.
When was the last time you talked to Chris Tucker about the Arvizos?
Only just in a party setting, at a Laugh Factory event.
And you saw Chris Tucker at these fundraisers, right?
Yes.
When is the last time you talked to Mr. Leno about the Arvizos?
During that phone conversation, when he called me.
And approximately when was that?
It would have been sometime in 2000, after I had asked him to send Gavin a picture.
Now, at the two fundraisers, how many people do you think attended each one?
I'm going to object. Beyond the scope.
Sustained.
You've indicated that when you spoke to Janet, she wanted you to meet her in Van Nuys or Sherman Oaks.
Sherman Oaks.
Okay, and that was at Yvonne's.
It's now a Gelson's.
Okay, and was it your understanding she was at Vaughn's when she called you?
It was my understanding she was nearby.
Okay, do you know who she was with?
No.
Do you know how she got to Vaughn's?
No.
Did she tell you?
It was all very secretive. She was scared.
She was scared, but wanted you to meet her at Vaughn's so she could come to your house, right?
So she could tell me what was happening.
She wanted to go to your house at one point, is that correct?
She wanted to be able to privately tell me. She felt like she was being listened to all the time.
She wanted to visit your home, true, and you said, no.
Objection. Beyond the scope.
Sustained.
At some point in the last 6 months, Janet Arvizo called you and said, don't talk to the defense investigator, right?
Objection. Hearsay.
Sustained.
Ask to strike the question.
The objection was sustained. The answers are stricken.
Okay. Do you remember telling the Santa Barbara sheriffs in that interview where you didn't know you were being recorded, I didn't want them at my house? Something about it, giving me a red flag. Do you remember that?
Yes. I have boundaries with the children I teach, that I keep.
Have they ever been to your house?
No.
Have you ever driven them anywhere?
No.
I have no further questions.
Thank you, counsel.
Just one question. Do you ever have children over at your house that are part of the programs where you work with children dealing with comedy?
I recently started an advanced program on Saturdays, and for lack of another place, we hold it at my house. And the parents are welcome to stay.
When did that happen? When did that start?
About 6 weeks ago.
And prior to that time, did you have a rule that you did not allow children to come to your house?
Yes, I did.
All right. Thank you. No further questions. Thank you, Your Honor.
No further questions, Your Honor.
Thank you. You may step down. Your testimony is completed. Thank you. The court will recess now, and we'll convene tomorrow morning at 8:30.
May the witness be subject to recall.
Yes, I did not excuse her.